Everyone in my family thought my mother Helen was just lucky. While her older sister battled diabetes, her brother had 3 heart attacks, and her younger sister developed arthritis. In her 60s, Helen sailed through her 70s without a single health scare. But when she turned 81 and still hadn't been to a doctor for anything more serious than a routine check-up, I started paying closer attention to what she was doing differently. What I discovered weren't expensive supplements or complicated exercise routines, they were 8 ridiculously simple habits that anyone can adopt. If you have elderly loved ones or you're concerned about your own aging process, stay with me until the end. Because what my mother Helen has been doing for decades challenges everything we think we know about healthy aging. And the best part, every single one of her habits costs almost nothing and can be started at any age. But first, let me tell you why Helen's health is so remarkable and why her doctor called her case medically extraordinary. The Family Health Reality Check. To understand why Helen's health is so unusual, you need to know about the rest of my family. We're not blessed with particularly good genes when it comes to health and longevity. My father died at 67 from complications related to diabetes and heart disease. He had been on multiple medications for high blood pressure since his 50s and had struggled with his weight for most of his adult life. Helen's older sister, Margaret, developed type 2 diabetes in her early 60s and spent the last 15 years of her life managing blood sugar swings, taking insulin, and dealing with the complications that came with the disease. Helen's brother Robert had his first heart attack at 58. He survived that one, but had 2 more over the next decade before dying at 68. Robert had been a smoker for most of his life, but even after quitting, his cardiovascular system never fully recovered. His younger sister, Dorothy, developed severe rheumatoid arthritis in her early 60s. By her 70s, she could barely walk without assistance and spent her final years in constant pain despite multiple medications and treatments. Looking at this family health history, you'd expect Helen to have developed at least one chronic condition by now. Statistically speaking, more than 85% of adults over 65 have at least one chronic disease and 60% have 2 or more. But Helen, at 81, she takes no prescription medications, has no chronic conditions, and her most recent physical exam results made her doctor do a double take. The doctor's shock. Last month, I accompanied Helen to her annual physical with Dr. Martinez, a geriatrician who's been practicing for over 30 years. As he reviewed her lab results and vital signs, I watched his expression change from routine professional assessment to genuine amazement. "Mrs. Johnson," he said, looking up from her chart, "I have to ask you about something. Your blood pressure is 118/76. Your cholesterol levels are better than most 40-year-olds. Your blood sugar is completely normal. Your inflammation markers are low, and your bone density scan shows minimal age-related changes. In 3 decades of treating elderly patients, I rarely see numbers like these." Helen just smiled and said, "Well, doctor, I feel fine. I guess I'm just lucky." But Dar Martinez shook his head. "Mrs. Johnson, this isn't luck. Genetics might play a small role, but given your family history, there's something else going on." "What are you doing that's different?" That's when I realized I needed to pay closer attention to my mother's daily routine. I started spending more time with her, observing her habits, asking questions about how she'd lived her life. What I discovered over the next few months was a series of simple, consistent Craxy that she'd been following for decades without even thinking of them as health strategies. Secret pound 1. She wakes up and goes to bed with the sun. The first thing I noticed about Helen was her relationship with natural light and sleep. She doesn't own an alarm clock and hasn't used one in over 20 years. Instead, she naturally wakes up around sunrise, 6,030 AM in summer, 7,030 AM in winter, and goes to bed within an hour of sunset. I just follow my body. She told me when I asked about her sleep schedule. When it gets dark, I start feeling tired. When the sun comes up, I'm ready to start the day. This wasn't a conscious health decision for Helen. It was just how she preferred to live, but research shows that this natural circadian rhythm alignment has profound health benefits. Studies indicate that people who maintain consistent sleep, wake cycles aligned with natural light patterns have better immune function, lower rates of depression, more stable blood sugar levels, and reduced inflammation. Helen averages 7-8 hours of sleep per night and rarely experiences insomnia. She doesn't drink caffeine after 2 p.m., doesn't watch television in her bedroom, and keeps her sleeping space cool and dark. She told me she's always been this way. Even when she was working, she preferred early morning shifts so she could maintain her natural rhythm. "I never understood people who stay up late watching TV. She said, when I'm tired, I sleep. When I'm rested, I wake up. It seems simple to me." This simple alignment with natural rhythms might be one of the most overlooked factors in healthy aging. While most people fight their natural circadian cycles with artificial light, caffeine, and irregular schedules, Helen has been working with her body's natural patterns for decades. Secret Pound 2. She moves throughout the day, never in chunks. Helen has never belonged to a gym, never followed an exercise program, and never owned workout equipment, but she moves constantly throughout her day in ways that most people overlook. I don't understand why people sit for hours and then try to make up for it with an hour at the gym, she told me during one of our conversations. I just keep moving all day long. Leon's movement pattern is what researchers call non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or NEAT. The calories burned through all the activities that aren't formal exercise. She walks to the grocery store twice a week. Instead of driving, it's only 6 blocks away. She tends a small garden behind her house, which requires daily watering, weeding, and harvesting. She does her own housework, including vacuuming, mopping, and cleaning bathrooms. But it's the small movements that really add up. Never sits for more than 30 minutes without getting up to do something. She'll get up to water a plant, put dishes away, organize a drawer, or simply walk to another room and back. She takes the stairs instead of elevators when they're available. She parks farther away from store entrances. She chooses the longest checkout lines at the grocery store because she says it gives her a chance to stretch her legs. When I started tracking her daily movement with a step counter, I was amazed to discover that Helen averages 8,000, 10,000 steps per day without ever setting foot in a gym or going for a formal walk. Her movement is integrated into her daily life in such natural ways that she doesn't even think of it as exercise. Research strongly supports this approach to movement. Studies show that frequent low-intensity movement throughout the day is more beneficial for healthy aging than intense exercise sessions separated by long periods of sitting. This constant, gentle movement maintains muscle mass, supports cardiovascular health, and keeps joints flexible without putting stress on the body. Secret Pound 3. She eats the same simple foods every day. Helen's diet would probably disappoint most nutritionists, not because it's unhealthy, but because it's so incredibly simple and repetitive. She eats essentially the same meals every day and has for decades. Breakfast: 2 eggs scrambled in a small amount of butter, 1 slice of whole grain toast, and half a grapefruit. Coffee with a splash of whole milk. Lunch: a large salad with mixed greens, tomatoes, cucumbers, and a handful of nuts, dressed with olive oil and lemon juice. A small portion of whatever protein she has on hand. Leftover chicken, a hard-boiled egg, or a small piece of cheese. Dinner: a palm-sized portion of simply prepared protein chicken, fish, or occasionally beef, a large serving of steamed or roasted vegetables, and a small portion of rice or potato. She drinks water throughout the day and rarely snacks between meals. She doesn't count calories, weigh food, or follow any particular diet plan. She just eats when she's hungry and stops when she's satisfied. I eat what makes me feel good, she explained. I don't understand why people make food so complicated. I know what I like. I know what I like. I know what agrees with my stomach, and I stick with it. What's remarkable about Helen's approach is its consistency and simplicity. She doesn't eat processed foods, not because she's avoiding them for health reasons, but because she prefers to prepare her own meals. She doesn't eat out often because she says restaurant food is too rich and makes her feel sluggish. Her portions are naturally moderate. She serves her meals on smaller plates and bowls that she's used for decades. She eats slowly, often reading while she eats, which allows her natural satiety signals to work properly. She rarely feels overly full because she pays attention to how her body feels. Research supports Helen's intuitive approach to eating. Studies show that people who eat consistent, simple meals tend to maintain healthier weights and have more stable blood sugar levels. The Mediterranean-style pattern of her diet emphasis on vegetables, healthy fats, and moderate portions of protein is associated with longevity and reduced risk of chronic diseases. Secret Pound 4. She maintains strong social connections through service. One of the most remarkable aspects of Helen's life is her social network and sense of purpose. At 81, she has more social obligations than many people half her age, but they're all centered around helping others. Helen volunteers at her church's food pantry twice a week, where she helps sort donations and assists families in selecting groceries. She's been doing this for over 15 years and has developed relationships with both other volunteers and the families they serve. It keeps me connected to my community, she says. And I see how I can help, and I stay involved with what's happening in people's lives. She also maintains a network of friends and neighbors that she checks on regularly. Helen has a list of about 8 people she calls or visits each week. Some are her age. Some are older, and some are younger neighbors who appreciate having someone reliable to talk to. She doesn't think of this as formal caregiving, she just says it's being neighborly. 3 afternoons a week, Helen visits her friend Ruth, who has mild dementia and lives in an assisted living facility. They play cards, look through photo albums, and Helen reads to Ruth when she's having a particularly confused day. "Ruth and I have been friends for 40 years, Helen explained. "I'm not going to abandon her now, just because her mind isn't what it used to be. This consistent social engagement and sense of purpose might be one of the most critical factors in Helen's health. Research consistently shows that people with strong social connections and a sense of purpose live longer, have lower rates of depression and cognitive decline, and maintain better physical health as they age." What's particularly important about Helen's social connections is that they're based on mutual support rather than one-way relationships. She both gives and receives help, maintains friendships across age groups, and stays actively involved in her community rather than withdrawing as many people do when they age. Secret Pound 5. She manages stress through routine and acceptance. Helen has faced her share of life stresses, the death of her husband, health problems, and her financial worries during economic downturns, but she has a remarkably consistent approach to managing difficult situations. "I've learned that most of the things I worry about never happen," she told me during a conversation about how she stays so calm, "and the things that do happen, I deal with when they come. Worrying about them ahead of time doesn't help anything." Helen's stress management isn't based on formal techniques like meditation or therapy, but rather on practical routines and a philosophy of acceptance. When she's feeling anxious or overwhelmed, she has a set of activities that help her feel grounded. She works in her garden, call a friend, takes a bath, or does some cleaning around the house. "Keeping my hands busy helps my mind settle down," she explained. "If I'm upset about something, I'll clean out a drawer or organize my closet. By the time I'm done, I usually feel better and have a clearer idea of what I need to do about whatever was bothering me." Helen also has realistic expectations about what she can and cannot control. She doesn't watch excessive amounts of news because she says it makes her feel helpless about problems she can't solve. She focuses her energy on her immediate environment, her home, her relationships, her community, where she can actually make a difference. When serious problems do arise, Helen's approach is practical rather than emotional. When her husband was diagnosed with diabetes, she learned about nutrition and helped him change his diet. When her sister developed arthritis, Helen researched treatment options and drove her to appointments. She doesn't deny or minimize problems, but she also doesn't catastrophize them. This balanced approach to stress management likely contributes significantly to Helen's physical health. Chronic stress is linked to inflammation, compromised immune function, and increased risk of cardiovascular disease. Helen's ability to maintain emotional equilibrium in the face of life's challenges probably protects her from many of the health problems associated with chronic stress. Secret Pound 6. She stays mentally active through learning, not entertainment. Helen's approach to mental stimulation is different from what many people think of as brain training. She doesn't do crossword puzzles or Sudoku, doesn't play computer games, and doesn't follow formal cognitive exercise programs. Instead, she stays mentally active through continuous learning and practical problem solving. Helen reads voraciously, usually 2 or 3 books per week from the library. She doesn't stick to one genre, but reads everything from biographies to mysteries to books about gardening or cooking. "I like learning about different people and places," she says. "Reading keeps my mind busy and teaches me things I never knew." She also learns practical skills that challenge her thinking. Last year, she learned to use a smartphone so she could stay in better touch with her grandchildren. She taught herself to use online banking so she could manage her finances more efficiently. She learned to identify and treat common garden pests when her tomatoes were being eaten by unknown insects. Helen asks questions constantly and genuinely wants to understand how things work. When she visits her doctor, she asks detailed questions about her test results and what they mean. When she reads news stories, she looks up background information to better understand the context. When she meets new people, she asks about their work, their families, their interests. This approach to mental stimulation, learning new practical skills, and staying genuinely curious about the world is more effective for cognitive health than passive entertainment or repetitive brain games. Research shows that people who continue learning and challenging themselves intellectually throughout their lives have lower rates of cognitive decline and dementia. So particularly important about Helen's approach is that her learning is always connected to real-world applications. She's not learning for the sake of mental exercise. She's learning because she wants to understand and engage with the world around her more effectively. Secret Pound 7. She practices gratitude without calling it that. Helen never talks about practicing gratitude or following gratitude exercises, but she naturally focuses on positive aspects of her life in ways that research shows support both mental and physical health. "I've had a good life," she often says. "I had a husband who loved me for 45 years. I have children and grandchildren who visit me. I have a home I can afford, and I'm healthy enough to take care of myself. What more could I ask for?" This isn't just polite social conversation for Helen, it reflects how she genuinely thinks about her life. She talks about her deceased husband. She focuses on happy memories rather than dwelling on his illness or death. When she discusses her siblings' health problems, she mentions how grateful she is for the time they had together rather than focusing on what was lost. Helen notices and comments on small positive things throughout her day: a beautiful sunset, a funny story someone told her, a successful recipe, a call from a grandchild, flowers blooming in her garden. She doesn't dismiss or minimize problems, but she doesn't let them overshadow the good things in her life. This natural focus on positive aspects of life likely contributes to Helen's emotional resilience and physical health. Research consistently shows that people who regularly experience and express gratitude have lower levels of stress hormones, better immune function, and reduced inflammation. What's remarkable about Helen's approach is that it's genuine rather than forced. She's not following a gratitude practice because someone told her it would be good for her health. She simply notices and appreciates the good things in her life because that's how she's chosen to see the world. Secret Pound 8. She lives according to her own values, not others' expectations. Perhaps the most important secret of Helen's health and happiness is that she's never tried to live according to other people's expectations of what her life should look like. She makes decisions based on what feels right for her, regardless of what's trendy or what other people think she should do. Helen has never felt pressure to travel extensively, even though many of her friends talk about their vacation adventures. "I like my home," she says simply. "I have everything I need here. Why would I want to sleep in hotels and eat restaurant food when I'm perfectly comfortable in my own bed and kitchen?" She doesn't feel obligated to use technology she doesn't want or need. While she learned to use a smartphone for practical reasons, she doesn't spend time on social media or feel pressure to keep up with every new device or app. Helen doesn't try to look younger than her age. She's never colored her gray hair, doesn't wear makeup regularly, and chooses clothes for comfort and practicality rather than fashion. "I'm 81 years old," she says. "I look like an 81-year-old woman, and that's fine with me." She doesn't feel pressure to be busier than she wants to be. While some of her peers fill their schedules with activities and social obligations, Helen chooses her commitments carefully and makes sure she has time for rest and solitude. This authenticity and self-acceptance likely contribute significantly to Helen's low stress levels and overall well-being. Research shows that people who live according to their own values, rather than trying to meet external expectations, have better mental health, more stable relationships, and even better physical health outcomes. Helen's approach to aging challenges many of the assumptions our culture makes about what it means to age successfully. She's not trying to stay young or prove that age is just a number. Instead, she's focused on living well at the age she is, making choices that support her health and happiness rather than conforming to others' expectations. The science behind Helen's secrets. When I shared Helen's habits with Aegir, Martin during a follow-up conversation, he wasn't surprised by any of them. "Your mother is instinctively following many of the practices that research shows support healthy aging," he explained. "The remarkable thing is that she's been doing these things for decades, long before we had scientific evidence to support them." Dr. Morton had pointed out that Helen's habits address all the major factors associated with healthy aging. Circadian rhythm alignment supports hormone regulation, immune function, and cellular repair processes. Regular gentle movement maintains muscle mass, bone density, and cardiovascular health without causing excessive stress on the body. Simple, consistent nutrition provides steady energy and nutrients while avoiding the inflammation associated with processed foods and erratic eating patterns. Strong social connections and purpose protect against depression, cognitive decline, and the physical health problems associated with isolation. Effective stress management prevents chronic inflammation and supports immune function. Continuous learning and mental engagement maintain cognitive flexibility and may protect against dementia. Gratitude and positive focus reduce stress hormones and support overall resilience. Authentic living reduces the psychological stress associated with trying to meet others' expectations. The beauty of your mother's approach, Dr. Martina added, is that these habits work synergistically. Each one supports the others, creating a lifestyle that promotes health and well-being across multiple systems in the body. What this means for the rest of us. Helen's secrets aren't really secrets at all. They're simple, accessible practices that anyone can adopt. The challenge isn't knowing what to do. No thousand. It's having the consistency and authenticity to do it for decades without getting distracted by every new health trend or piece of conflicting advice. What makes Helen's approach so powerful is its sustainability. She's not following a complicated program or making dramatic sacrifices. She's simply living in ways that feel natural and comfortable to her, ways that happen to support exceptional health and longevity. You don't have to be 81 to start benefiting from Helen's wisdom. Either you're 40, 60, or anywhere in between, you can begin aligning your sleep with natural rhythms, incorporating more movement into your daily routine, simplifying your diet, strengthening your social connections, managing stress through routine and acceptance, staying curious and learning, focusing on gratitude, and living according to your own values rather than others' expectations. The key insight from Helen's story is that healthy aging isn't about finding the perfect supplement, the right exercise program, or the latest anti-aging treatment. It's about creating a way of life that supports your body's natural resilience and your mind's natural wisdom. Helen's advice for others. When I asked Helen what advice she would give to people who want to age as successfully as she has, her answer was characteristically simple and practical. Pay attention to what makes you feel good and what makes you feel bad, then do more of the first and less of the second. Don't make things more complicated than they need to be. Take care of your relationships because they're more important than anything else. Stay busy with things that matter to you. And remember that getting older is a privilege that not everyone gets to experience. Helen's approach to aging challenges our culture's obsession with youth and our tendency to treat aging as a problem to be solved rather than a natural process to be navigated with grace and wisdom. At 81, Helen isn't trying to look or act like she's 40. She's focused on being the healthiest, happiest 81-year-old she can be. Based on her remarkable health outcomes, her approach is working extraordinarily well. The next time you find yourself overwhelmed by conflicting health advice or expensive, anti-aging promises, remember Helen's simple wisdom. Align your life with natural rhythms, move your body regularly, eat simple foods, maintain strong relationships, manage stress through routine and acceptance, stay curious and learning, appreciate what you have, and live according to your own values. It isn't revolutionary concepts, but they're practices that can literally add years to your life and life to your years. Helen is living proof that the secret to healthy aging isn't found in a bottle or a gym membership. It's found in the simple daily choices we make about how to live our lives. Thank you for joining me in exploring my mother's remarkable approach to healthy aging. If Helen's story resonated with you, please share this video with others who might benefit from her wisdom. Your sharing could help someone discover simple changes that dramatically improve their health and well-being. Please comment below with your own experiences with healthy aging, whether from personal practice or observing elderly family members who seem to have discovered the secrets of longevity. And don't forget to subscribe for more content that challenges conventional wisdom and shares practical insights for living better at every age. Remember, you don't need expensive supplements or complicated programs to age well. Sometimes the most powerful health strategies are hiding in plain sight, practiced by remarkable people like Helen who have been living them for decades without even realizing they were ahead of their time.